Hello, everyone. Welcome to the hospitality room. Bobby Swofford, Blair Cartwright, with you again this week. Hope everyone's had a great week. You're still without air conditioning, so it's been a rough week, has it
It's
not?
it's been rough coming up on a month in the Swofford household, but we're getting there. They tell me parts are going to be delivered on Monday, so fingers crossed that nothing happens between now and
Oh, that's insane. That is insane. But you're
then. Home
making
warranties
do, right?
we're making do. Home warranties are great in theory until you actually have to use them.
Yes.
We're not paying for it; it's free. So I guess that's the silver lining in this because the home warranty we just bought the
But
house last fall, and so it's free, it's included. So you got to use it. But my gosh, I mean, I'm saving a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but a month without air in the middle of summer in the South, not
no, and inconvenient.
fun.
Inconvenient.
Yes,
All right.
very much so.
A lot of stuff to talk about. Let's get right to it. We'll start first with the NCAA and the House settlement. It's not official yet, but they are saying baseball could have up to 35 full scholarships, football 105 full scholarships. I think softball was at 25, volleyball was 18. That's going to take more money. Do you think, if this goes through, that we will see teams or schools drop sports because of the expense involved?
I think so. But also, I think you're going to see a lot of schools just because that's the maximum doesn't mean you have to offer that many either.
True, true.
So I think you're going to start to really see the separation of the haves and the have-nots,
Hmm.
and not necessarily football because 85 scholarships honestly is still enough to win national championships. But for baseball, softball, maybe even volleyball, you're really going to see the separation of the powers. Let's be real about it. You're going to
Yeah.
start to see the Oklahomas of the world who are already significantly better than everybody else in softball. Now they're going to go up to here because they can afford to give 25 scholarships in softball. Why maybe Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, maybe they can't afford that same. Even though the Oklahoma State's a really good softball program, maybe they don't have it in the budget to offer 10 or 15 extra softball scholarships. That's what it was going to have. The SEC and all the sports that we're talking about, they can afford it. Let's be real.
Yes.
It's the UCA's, the Arkansas States, maybe even the Texas Techs. Some of the lower level, even though they're in a Power Four conference, some of those lower level schools that aren't going to be able to say or even justify, like, hey, let's go ahead and give 25 scholarships to a softball program that maybe brings in 100 fans per game. Like
Yeah.
you got to the pros and cons with it.
But also with the limit, there's only so much playing time. So, and NIL and with the portal, do you think anybody will actually hit the limit?
Yeah, I do, especially in baseball, especially in the SEC,
Hmm.
because they're gonna continue to transfer. But think about it: if you're a softball player and you're a fringe player anyway, so say you're
Yeah.
you're on the cusp of making the rotation at a school, but you're on a full scholarship, you may not get a dime in NIL, but guess what? You're going to school for free. If she transfers and maybe she only gets a half scholarship at a different school, and that's the maximum offer, maybe they don't transfer as much because they're not having to pay to play, opposed to sitting riding the bench and they're getting a scholarship.
Wait. You're talking about a student athlete actually going to school for the education?
No, I'm going to school for free. Let's
Oh,
let's be,
okay.
let's be real about that.
Okay. 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 No, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, for college baseball, good lord, um, that could have a good effect, bad effect. I don't know. I mean, they're competing against the draft as well as I kind of disappear in the beach here, but it's about time baseball and softball, which have always been partial sports, scholarship
Mhm.
sports, get a full ride. But yeah, I mean I think I saw a figure 2.5 million, which seems low to help fund these additional scholarships. And of course, who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, football, men's
Football
basketball.
and the fans
Yeah.
who have to pay the freight on everything. Plus, you still
Hmm.
got to kick in money for the NIL. So,
Yeah.
eh, we'll see how this plays out, but that will be interesting to see. All right, our next topic: the champion golfer of the year, Xander Schauffele, What a final round. I mean, he was amazing, was he not?
It was. I mean, and that's what it takes. And you get into the Open Championship, and you get like the fescue and the native grasses, if you will. I mean,
Yes.
you don't
And the
find
weather.
a golfer, yeah, in the weather. That's a given. You don't find someone who wins that tournament who hits the ball into the woods, or hits the balls into the rough. Obviously, that's
Hmm.
why like a
Or the
DeChambeau is going to be
gorse.
very rare for him to win in
Hmm.
Europe, just because he doesn't hit the fairway very often. Like you've got to be able to almost place in the fairway. And there's obviously so many bunkers in a link style golf course. Um, and it's the ball strikers, if you will, the guys who hit it pure. Maybe not, they don't hit it as far. The guys who hit it pure are always going to win.
It's a links golf is different. And if you've ever been
Yes,
over there, have you been over there? Have you played links golf? And
I've not.
put it on your bucket list. I got to play the Strathairn course at St Andrews. wasn't the course, but it was still links. It's a different game because we're so used to target golf over here. You have to think your way around. But back to his final round. I mean, he shot a 65 in the final round in terrible weather. And Billy Horschel, who had the lead going into the final round, had what, two shot lead? Shot a
Mm-hmm.
67 in the final round of a major and still lost.
Yeah,
I mean,
wild.
there's no way. If you,
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine if you told him the night before, if he could have slept, hey, you're going to shoot 67 tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
you would take that every day of the week, right?
No, no doubt. I mean, you look at a couple of the guys. You look at Justin Rose. I mean, he goes 69, 68, 73, 67. A lot
Hmm.
of times that's going to win you a championship. And he finishes two strokes back. They're tied with Horschel as well. I mean, sometimes you just got to tip your cap. I mean, again, if a guy goes out and shoots 65 on Sunday in a major championship, I mean, sometimes you know what, it wasn't my day. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we got used to that. Obviously, the last 15 to 20 years, watching somebody in a red shirt go really, really low on Sunday, and like, what can you do?
Hmm.
But more times than not, Tiger put it away on Thursday and Friday and ran away with it on the weekend. But I mean, 65 on Sunday with that much pressure and those conditions, I mean, you tip the cap, you move on. You're like, all right, I'll settle for my 1.5 million, and I really would have liked 3 million, but 1.5 is good enough.
Yeah, amazing. And the coolest moment was when he embraced his dad afterwards,
Yeah.
coming off 18. I mean, that was really really cool. So our next question: who is the golfer of the year, Shoffley or Scheffler?
I still think it's got to be Scheffler. I mean, just what he's done. I mean, I know we're not talking about him. He's still finishing the top 10.
Hmm.
Still made almost $500,000 for this tournament. But what he has done this year is unreal. I mean, we haven't seen someone to that dominant over that long of a stretch since Tiger, in his dominant run. I mean, so what he has done on a consistent basis, and you throw in the fact that he got manhandled by the police, he had a kid,
That's
this whole
true.
thing, and he's still going out and throwing up top 10 finishes in the majors and winning on the PGA Tour. I mean, it's not even close. I'm gonna see if I can pull up his stats this year. I mean, it's unreal the things that he's been able to do just week in and week out, and the money list is unreal what he's done.
I kind of think what he see because he kind of disappeared in the final round at Troon.
Hmm.
If he makes any kind of charge, this is probably not even a debate, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, but I couldn't believe it's the first time someone's won two majors since what, 16, which is
Yeah,
kind of
I
amazing.
mean, it is. I mean, there's been a bunch of parity in golf, and I think it's good. We don't have superstars. I mean, Scheffler obviously is playing like one, but I mean, he can walk into my office right now, and I may not recognize him.
Yeah.
So like, we don't have those dominant golfers. But you look at what Scheffler's done this year, and we count these 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, in 16 tournaments this year. He has finished outside of the top 20 once.
Whew. That's
And that was
pretty
the
impressive.
U.S. Open was his worst showing. Finished tied for 41st. Still made the cut. I mean, you're talking one, two, three, four, five, 6 victories. handful of additional top fives. There's a two ties for second. There's a third. There's a fifth. I mean, it's unreal what he's been able to do. And I can't do math, but 4, 8 plus 6, that's 14. So he's made over $20 million in just the tournaments that he's won, not even
Wow.
including when he finished second, third. The guy's made
Jeez.
$50 million playing golf this year.
Holy cow. And that does not count endorsements.
Correct.
Wow. That's 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 amazing. That's amazing. But
Hmm.
I think we can also say this too for golf. That was great. It wasn't close, but it was good theater, and it was probably a good way to end the majors on because it was the rest of them have been kind of dull.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to put a number on it, which I know is really tough, and I have no idea what the President Cup standings are, but you get points for
Yeah,
how you finish in tournaments. Xander Schauffele has 8,700 points, which is 2,900 more than third place Colin Morikawa.
good
He is
lord,
6,500 points behind Scotty Scheffler.
that's a lot.
That's a
Yeah,
lot. I mean, you're talking more than 13,000 points that Scheffler has in the points. It's a lot.
yeah. I think you've made the case for Scheffler very very well. All right, they're playing in the Olympics this coming week. Olympics start
Hmm.
tomorrow. How excited are you for the Olympics? Take it or
Sales up
leave
to
it.
here. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a leave it guy for the Summer Olympics. They don't do much for me.
yeah. Yeah, I've seen the promos on NBC, and it's just kind of like, eh.
Yeah,
Other than track and field, the swimming, and Simone Biles, I mean, does anyone really want to
yeah,
watch basketball? We've watched basketball all
no.
stinking year.
And they almost lost to who? Ghana or someone like that the
Yeah,
other day.
South Sudan and
South
Leon's,
Sudan. Yeah,
yeah, Leon's Hair Academy, I think, is who they open up round
yeah.
play with. So,
But one thing about basketball, though, I read an article about it earlier this week, and one thing that was very intriguing to me. So everybody obviously puts the standard of the Dream Team, the '92 squad.
yes. Mm-hmm.
There were 9 NBA players playing for the rest of the world during the '92 Olympics. There were 61 this year.
Wow. Yeah.
So the level of play against the competition has grown significantly. And of course, if we don't win the gold medal and win every game by 40 points, we always like, oh my God, these guys are a bunch of bums.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Jordan and Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson, they beat up on you and me. Like,
Yeah.
the guys playing for the world teams back then were terrible. And now, at least, these rosters are made up of professional players.
Yes. Well, I heard something interesting about the Dream Team. Once Stockton never played in the Olympics because he got hurt prior. Bird could barely walk, so he wasn't really at full strength.
Hmm.
Barkley kind of carried the team. But I think we're seeing as a result of what they did and the impact it's had worldwide, we might have to take our
Hmm.
medicine as a result.
Yeah, I mean, so they started it in '92. Then the World Games and Shaquille O'Neal, the hero, Marley was on that team, and they did the same thing.
Hmm.
They beat everybody by 40 and 50. And then the
Yeah.
'96 Olympics in Atlanta, they beat everybody by 1,000. So yeah, I think those right. I think those three teams, Dream Team 1, 2, and 3, if you want to call them that,
Hmm.
those three teams told the rest of the world, "We're here to play."
Yeah.
And it's taken them now 2.5 decades, but they can play now too.
Yeah. Oh, no question about it. And it also brings calls in the fact: did we really pick our best team? They've only been played together what 2 weeks, and you could say
Yeah,
the same thing about the women because they got beat by the
beat by the All
WNBA
Star
All
team.
Stars.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we go with all these aging people, but granted, you take LeBron off that team and they're probably toast. So, is there
yeah.
one event that you're looking forward to at all?
I mean, you always watch the 100-meter dash. I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the fastest man in the world still carries a lot of weight.
Yes.
The Olympic sports and track and field may not carry much, but when you can claim you're the fastest man in the world, that's going to say something. You kind of pay attention to that. I mean, obviously, if the gold medal match for basketball is there, I'll turn it on. But everything else, like you don't have the Michael Phelps anymore in swimming. See, like there's not that one marquee event. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to watch this. I need to watch Usain Bolt, or I need to watch Michael Johnson or Michael Phelps. You just don't really feel like you have that.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. We'll see who they try to turn into the next superstar.
Hmm.
You mentioned Texas Tech earlier. Canady cashes in. The top pitcher in softball is going from Stanford to Lubbock. She's going to make over 1 million in NIL, a 1-year deal reportedly. So she's got 2 years of eligibility left, so she can cash in and then go to a real program next year. Is this the future of NIL, where a school
Hmm.
like Tech says, "Hey, we're Midland in softball. We're going to throw a ton of money at it and get good."
Yeah, I mean, because all it takes, Blair, and you know this, is one booster who cares about one obscure sport, and
Mm-hmm.
you can literally take a irrelevant softball program. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know, have a clue about Texas Tech softball. I don't.
Oh, they're
I just
mid
threw them
mid of the
as a random.
pack. Yeah.
Yeah, I just threw them out there as an example. But now they are about to be probably number two in that conference with the addition of this pitcher automatically. You got
Oh yeah.
Oklahoma State, who's a top five program every year, and now Texas Tech, and which is going to put them in position to win a national championship or at least compete for a national championship because you no longer have to go through conference play through Norman or Stillwater, obviously in Stillwater. You don't have to go through Texas, who's always a top five program. So, but the question is because the way the SEC is now structured, and we talked about this before, they've
Mm-hmm.
got 15 teams in the SEC softball who are going to be in a regional. Every year, Texas Tech is going to get an SEC school in their regional. When she's there, can she beat them twice? And that's
Yeah.
going to be the question.
And is she there next year? Will be
Yeah,
an even bigger
that's
question.
unreal. Texas Tech
Isn't
paying
it?
$1 million for a softball pitcher. I
But
don't
then
know you can
again,
justify paying a baseball pitcher $1 million.
no. But a softball pitcher, she's probably going to throw and start. She'll appear in every game that they play,
Mm-hmm.
except maybe two. They might give her a day off. But softball,
Yeah,
you
it's
can
true.
just
I
keep
mean,
throwing. So
yeah, you probably got 56 games on the schedule, just like the men do. Yeah, she'll probably have 40, at least 40
oh,
starts.
50. Oh, I bet 50 at least. I mean, they're paying her a
Yeah,
mill. They're going to want to see it.
it's true.
But you can do that. I mean, you think about it. These pitchers they throw all summer. They're used to throwing all the
Hmm.
time. So, but a school like that who says, "Hey, we're not going to be able to compete in football, basketball, maybe baseball, but there's only so much NIL money, so let's throw it over
Hmm.
here."
Yeah, I mean, to me, Texas Tech and Oklahoma State are a very precarious situation because you look at the conference as it stands now, they should be the standard in every
Mm-hmm.
sport. Texas Tech, and maybe they're taking the right approach. Like, hey, this is a new conference. This is a new day. This is for a chance for us to take over this league. And maybe they think by dominating softball could be the start of doing that.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out and if anybody else follows. Speaking of cashing in, the NBA is going to get a lot of money. They chose Amazon over TNT. Were you surprised? And that's going to be
Oh,
in court soon.
yeah, I don't think so. I mean, that's the way everything's going, and the NBA seems to be more progressive than pretty much all the other sports. Um, Streaming and gambling is where the future is.
Mm-hmm.
And ESPN's figured it out. That's why they've got their own gambling service. That's why they're trying to bolster ESPN Plus, even though it's the worst app you can possibly own on your
Yes.
whether it's your gaming device or your phone. It's terrible. Never works.
Yes.
But that's the future. And so honestly, I think we're going to see more and more NFL games on the app. I think we're going to see more and more Major League Baseball going away from the standard local television rights to nothing but streaming. I think they're going to finally figure it out. And so the NBA was just the first to do it.
Amazon is a player,
Yeah.
pure and simple. They're going to be a player. So, meant to talk about this last week. Joe Tess is going to do WWE, but he's still going to do ESPN and ABC stuff.
Yeah.
Is that viable? Does it hurt his credibility? Or
I
does
don't think
anyone even
so.
care anymore?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I don't watch wrestling anymore. I used to love it. Like most people my age, back in the late '90s, early 2000s. But I'm going to give you a name. That's why this is going to be more credible. Jonathan Coachman. What he was
Yeah.
able to do, bouncing back and forth from the WWF or WWE and ESPN a couple times, lends itself to it. And obviously, ESPN has kind of gotten in bed to a certain extent with the WWE because of what McAfee does.
Mm-hmm.
He called Monday Night Raw. Obviously, he's got the show that's on ESPN and obviously streams on YouTube, and they have wrestlers and promos. They go on both of them. Honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the WWE. saw an opportunity. It's like, hey, let's get a big time name. Tessitore is awesome. I love Tessitore calling boxing. That's why I think he's going to be pretty
Hmm.
good at wrestling too.
Oh, he'll be real
Um,
good.
and and I don't know. I read the article that I think it's in 2025. WWE is going to Netflix for Monday Night
Oh,
Raw, and they're also going to
okay.
go to a TVMA rating. And so the Attitude Era of what it used to be is about to come back full fledged. I think wrestling has a chance if they get the obviously they got to get the right characters and the right storylines. I think it's got a chance to have another resurgence like it had in the late '90s.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair. He fits perfect. He's
Hmm.
one of those guys that just captures the moment. He's the
Authentic
exact
energy is
opposite.
what he brings.
Yes, he's the exact opposite of Joe Davis.
Yeah,
And we'll leave it at that.
yeah.
Let's talk football. Training camps have opened. People are holding out left and right. It's crazy. Um, let's dive into. I've got a couple teams we want to talk about. Hard Knocks, Hard Watch. Have you watched any of this with the Giants? Holy cow!
Yeah, so I've watched all four of them, and I've actually watched this week's on Tuesday night when it came out. One, I love the idea of the access they're getting to the preseason.
Yes.
It's
Hmm.
just I don't like who they gave us, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So the wife watches it with me because she likes Hard Knocks. She doesn't necessarily care about the NFL so much, but she likes the behind the scenes stuff. And she
Hmm.
go and she literally says, "I want to punch this guy in the face." Talk about Joe Sheen, the
Yeah.
general manager for the Giants. It just he kind of comes off as a shady character, to be honest.
Yeah. The whole Saquon thing was just.
Uh,
And of course, then Saquon comes out and says, "Oh yeah, I was never gonna do that," and they you hear his side because we
mhm.
only hear one way on the phone calls. But I mean, good lord, just you just wonder. I mean, they had no plan, but they go all in on Daniel Jones, restock the line, and then they bring in a running back who's maybe half the production of Saquon. It's just
Yeah, so,
bizarre.
yeah, I don't know. You can kind of take this to a couple ways. Look, if I'm a diehard Giants fan and I got a Saquon Barkley jersey in my closet, I feel very, very differently than what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
But I think somebody on the outside looking in, he hasn't been healthy. He can't stay healthy. He's not worth $12.5 million a year, especially when you have so many other deficiencies on that side of the football. Now, Daniel Jones is what he is. He's a quarterback
Hmm.
that a lot of teams don't have, but he's been hurt too. He's missed. I believe they said it in the show. He's missed 17 games in 2 years, so
Yeah.
that's a lot of time missed. But they knew they had offensive line problems. They knew that they didn't have really premier playmakers. Darren Waller was a bust as a tight end. Honestly, I would prefer if that's my team, I would prefer to build the way they did rather than go give Saquon $12.5 million. That's from a non-Giants fan, but I can also
Hmm.
see the other side where like he's the only player of significance that you have on the offensive side of the ball. You need to pay him.
See, that's what I'm thinking too, and you kind of get the idea. That's what the owner was trying to tell him. Hey, he's our most popular player, and God forbid if he goes in division, which he did. I mean, granted, the Eagles threw a ton of money at him. You can't blame him
Yeah,
for leaving, but it was just,
I think that
it's
shocked them more than anything. Is
yeah,
that
oh
like
yeah,
so? So what really hurt them, because I believe it's in episode one, you saw the reaction when they got the email saying, "Hey, this year's salary cap is going to be this." It was
mm-hmm.
like $8 or $9 million more than expected, and it was like, "Oh, that price for Saquon's about to go up," because that means the running back value is about to go up. He's
Yeah,
going to afford to pay more money.
yeah. It's like they just don't have a plan. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
but it was kind of, to me, it really looked like their plan was to move up to whether with the Redskins or Commanders at two or the Patriots at three.
Hmm.
They wanted a quarterback. They wanted to go. That's why I think they spent a whole episode talking about the
Yeah.
quarterbacks that they brought in. They really wanted to go up and get a quarterback, but the asking price was too much.
Yeah. Well, they were really hoping the Patriots were going to make a deal with them, and then the
I mean,
Panther and everybody else. Yeah, it was fascinating to see all that, but it was just like I don't know. It's almost like they spent so much time congratulating themselves without doing anything.
yeah.
You know.
Well, the two
So
linemen they got, okay, I like Neighbors. I don't, I don't.
yeah.
To me, he was probably the third receiver I would have taken. Marvin Harrison was so far up above
Oh
everybody else, but
yeah.
Adunze was really good. But when you look at the needs, okay, it's funny every time I hear Jermaine Lau Manore's name, the lineman they signed from the Raiders. I was right in the middle of Channel Five, the TV thing, when he was committed to Arkansas. Then all of a sudden he flipped to Texas A&M really really late, and I
Uh-huh.
remember that being a really big story in Fayetteville. And it's like so every time I see him actually do something in the NFL or now get this big contract, it kind of makes me giggle. It's like I've been covering this kid since he's 17 years old.
Crazy. Well, speaking of another team that's been interesting this offseason, the Cowboys, who, of course, are all in. CeeDee Lamb's now out of camp. Micah Parsons once paid. Dak once paid. What a
Mm.
mess. And yet, it occurred to me today Jerry has struggled since Jimmy left, obviously. What makes him think, where's he thinking that suddenly after 20 years of inability to figure it out, it's going to click?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. You thought okay with the defense that they had with Dan Quinn, they're gonna figure it out. and
Mm-hmm.
then they get absolutely blasted by the Packers in the playoffs last year. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody thought of okay, this team's really close. Like they're really close. They got smoked by the 49ers in the regular season. They gave you no indication that they were a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But they're
No.
like, okay, they're going to go to the playoffs and compete. But when they get smacked around by the Packers like they did on their home field to essentially a first year starting quarterback. I know that Jordan Love had been in the league for a couple of years, but a first year
Yeah.
starting quarterback. And
Yeah.
then you go in the offense, the offseason, and you say, oh, we're all in, and then you don't do anything.
We signed
And
Zeke
now you got,
Elliott.
yeah, and now you got disgruntled players. You let Tony Pollard walk out the door, so you don't really have a plan in the backfield.
Yeah.
Michael, who hasn't been who he's been, retired. Um, yeah, I mean, they've got a chance for chaos in that organization the next year or two. Because if they don't re-sign Dak, if they don't give him the money and they don't re-sign him, and all of a sudden he walks out and he signs with the Jets or somebody like that in the near future. Ooh,
Do I had a crazy idea. Trade him to the Panthers for Bryce Young.
yeah,
I mean, why on earth would you give I mean, why would you give Dak 50 million when he hasn't done anything in the playoffs to indicate he's a playoff winning quarterback? Why give him that kind of money
golly,
unless you're just content to win the regular season and pray you get lucky in the playoffs?
yeah, that's all a very good point. But then again, you thought you had a really really good defense and you got shredded. So like Dak didn't play well in the playoff game, but he didn't give up 50 by himself.
No, no, but he makes mistakes in the
He
playoff
does.
games when it counts. So
If they want to send him to New England, I'll take him right now. Better than what we've had the last few years.
yeah, see, I think you move him and you get Young. I mean, we're seeing teams smart, and that brings us to the next one. Jordan Love wants to get paid. Probably
Mm-hmm.
should pay him because he's won a playoff game. He's shown results.
Yep. Got to
Too
pay
many
him.
guys. Yeah,
Yeah. Just like Jamar Chase in Cincinnati, I know he's kind of fighting for a new contract. You got to pay those guys. Those kind of players at those positions don't come around very often. That's why
no.
Minnesota paid Justin Jefferson. That's why you're starting to see the quarterbacks get astronomical amounts of money. You got to pay them when you got them. And you got to keep those guys happy. So
Well,
Jordan Love needs a contract, and honestly, Dak needs a contract.
yeah, you got to reward the guys who do it in the postseason because isn't ultimately that
Mm-hmm.
what it's all about?
Yeah, 100%.
It seems to be. Hey, hit us up, email us, follow us on Twitter, ask us anything. We'd love to read emails on the air here. Mr. Swofford, final word today.
A week until